Egypt firmly opposes the forced displacement of Palestinians, settlement expansion, and urges a two-state solution. Displaced Palestinians return to their homeland in the north of the Gaza Strip. And the Palestinian presidency rejects displacement proposals and urges global. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Qnews, and we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in the Gaza Strip. Egypt has reaffirmed its unwavering commitment to the Palestinian cause, calling it the cornerstone of the Middle East stability. This came in a foreign ministry statement where the ministry emphasized support for Palestinian resilience and rights, rejecting actions such as settlement expansion, annexation, or displacement. Egypt urged the global community to implement the two-state solution, establishing a Palestinian state on pre-1967 borders, including East Jerusalem, in line with the international law and legitimacy. Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi has reaffirmed his country's opposition to the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. This was a press conference where he emphasized King Abdullah II's stance that Jordan is for the Jordanians and Palestine is for the Palestinians, advocating for a two-state solution as the path to peace. Al-Safadi reiterated Jordan's unwavering rejection of forced displacement and its ongoing efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza, demonstrating Jordan's commitment to regional stability. Hamas has praised Egypt and Jordan for their steadfast rejection of any attempts to displace the Palestinian people from their homeland under any pretext. Hamas urged the Arab League and the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation to also firmly reject all forms of displacement. Meanwhile, the Palestinian presidency condemned any proposals aiming to uproot Palestinians from Gaza, warning such actions across the red lines. They emphasized Palestinians will never abandon their land, sacred sites, or endure another catastrophe. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians began moving from central and southern Gaza back to the north in the early morning. That came after the agreement mediated by Egypt, Qatar, and the United States between Hamas and Israel. Al Qahira News correspondent reported that Al-Rashid Street is now open for pedestrian movement only, while Salah ad-Din Street will allow vehicle traffic northward. Humanitarian organizations urged adherence to designated routes and caution regarding war remnants. Palestinian presidential spokesperson Nabil Aburdina has rejected proposals for forced displacement and alternative homelands, describing them as destabilizing and chaotic for the region. He emphasized that lasting peace must be based on international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative. Highlighting Palestinians' resilience, Aburdina reaffirmed their commitment to their homeland and called for the recognition of Palestinian statehood with East Jerusalem as its capital, supported by international efforts, particularly from Egypt and Jordan. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has announced that Israel would enforce the ceasefire along both its northern border with Lebanon and the southern Gaza front as displaced Palestinians return from southern Gaza to the north. Katz warned that anyone violating orders or threatening Israeli forces would face consequences. He further claimed that Israel would not allow a return to the pre-October 7th situation. Resigned Israeli Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has condemned the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza, calling it absolute surrender rather than victory. Ben-Gvir criticized the decision, arguing that it undermines the sacrifices of Israeli soldiers and demanded a renewed military offensive. He claimed that reopening the Netzarim route and enabling the return of tens of thousands of Palestinians to northern Gaza is a symbolic victory for Hamas, reflecting a failure in Israel's strategy. Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians returned to northern Gaza following agreements mediated by Egypt, Qatar, and the United States.
Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians began returning to the northern Gaza Strip after Hamas agreed to release Israeli detainees, including Erbil Yahud, before Friday. In exchange, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu permitted displaced Palestinians to return to their homes. Crossings were opened in phases, allowing approximately 650,000 people to journey back. Many had been living in dire conditions in temporary shelters. The return was marked by relief and hope, despite the destruction of them in the northern Gaza. Returning families face immense hardships as they attempt to rebuild their lives amid the devastation. This development follows a truce mediated by Egypt, Qatar, and the United States, which includes reciprocal releases of Israeli and Palestinian detainees. The first phase of the ceasefire is expected to last until early March and involves further detainee exchanges. However, the next phase is more complex. Hamas has called for a complete cessation of hostilities for additional releases, while Israel remains committed to dismantling Hamas's military and political structures. Although the return of displaced Palestinians signals a step toward normalcy, the path to lasting peace remains uncertain, requiring significant efforts to address humanitarian needs and political disputes in the region.
And for more analysis, we now move to Hani in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Hala. Ladies and gentlemen, for further analysis on the situation in Gaza as Palestinian civilians go back to their homeland in the north, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor, Mr. Ashraf Al-Ashri. Welcome to Qnews. Mr. Ashri, can the two-state solution be realistically achieved under the current political conditions?
Greetings to you and to your viewers. Of course, this is very early to talk about the two-state solution. There must be procedures to pave the way for that. It is so far away. We're talking about the first phase of the truce and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for the Israeli hostages. We still have phase 2 and 3 that might be hindered by Netanyahu and the far-wing government and the financial and the Ministry of Finance, Smotrich, who is seeking the hindrance of the second and third phase. These phases will take so long, but in addition to the U.S. cover, Now we are researching mechanisms to achieve the second and third phases, providing guarantees that Israel does not violate the exchange deals, as well as researching with international and regional partners, including Egypt. Regarding the second day in the Gaza Strip, we have a long road ahead, especially in the Trump statements. He is not very initiative, is not initiating a complete political settlement for a two-state solution, as Trump has never spoke about a two-state solution since he assumed office. So we're waiting to see what Trump is thinking about and the new U.S. administration and what's going to happen during the next week meeting between Trump and Netanyahu in the White House and his visit to Washington.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you elaborate more on Egypt's approach to rejecting settlement expansion, annexation, and displacement?
Of course, the Egyptian stance is very clear. It is based on essential fundamentals. Egypt is the most country in the world that provided sacrifices for 70 years supporting the Palestinian cause. It went to 4 wars for the Palestinian cause and to maintain the security and stability in the region. And regarding the peace treaty, Egypt was proactive to provide all the entitlements for the Palestinian population. During the 11 past years, it exerted a lot of effort to settle the situation between Hamas and Israel. We provided a lot of support during the past 11 years, as the support exceeded its limit during the past 15 months on 2 levels, at the political and humanitarian and medical levels for the Palestinian population. Egypt is supporting Palestine and rejecting any Israeli attempts to kill the Palestinian cause or for any forced displacement of Palestinians or establishing new settlements in the West Bank. Egypt was very strong and bold. Yesterday was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs statement rejecting any attempts for the forced displacement of Palestinians, requesting Palestinians to hold on to their lands and territories, rejecting any kind of long-term or temporary displacement of the population based on the Egyptian policy to deal with the Palestinian cause, advising Palestinians to hold on to their land in the Gaza Strip and to stop any attempts to tamper with the national security of Egypt, and requesting all the international community to commit to the international legitimacy resolutions to establish a two-state solution and a Palestinian independent state.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ashi, can you describe the role Egypt is playing in the humanitarian aid efforts for Gaza and also the Palestinian statehood?
Huge efforts. The international community has commended the Egyptian effort 15 months, and the Egyptian state is providing tireless efforts to provide secure the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We are providing now a line of humanitarian and medical aid to Gaza, and during the first weeks of this war, Egypt committed to evacuate foreigners from the Gaza Strip in exchange for giving access to humanitarian aid. That's why the Egyptian side is practicing the most pressure on Israel and requesting and requiring the United States to commit to securing or preventing the starvation that is now being intended in Gaza.
Well, what about the rest of the international community? What role can the international community and the UN resolutions play in supporting the Palestinian statehood and rights?
Of course, the ball now is at the UN's court. The European Union as well should help provide urgent humanitarian assistance, would intend there is need for 36,000 tents and wood houses to help the Palestinian population returning from the south to the north, build new houses, as all the houses were completely destroyed in the north. So the international community now plays an integral part in providing medical necessary assistance, as the Egyptian state has endured 80% of the humanitarian aid entered into Gaza for 15 months. This humanitarian aid and trucks must be increased. Also providing proactive health measures to help Palestinians save lives. And they should cooperate with Egypt for the Gaza reconstruction during the upcoming period. The international community shall assume its responsibility to save the Palestinian population from starvation and illnesses, and discussing the Gaza reconstruction fund during the upcoming period.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ashri, what about the response of Ayman al-Safadi regarding the suggestion of the displacement of Palestinians? What's your take on that?
It was a very good stance by Jordan, because it's in line with the Egyptian stance, as the Jordanian will not accept this forced displacement, and all the Trump statements was faced by anger from Egypt and Jordan and the entire Arab world. The Ayman al-Safadi statements today were very strong, consistent with the Egyptian stance towards the forced displacement of Palestinians, as they are willing to maintain the Palestinian populations on their lands, on their territories. And there are discussions between the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the King of Jordan, King Abdullah. They have the same stance towards any attempts by Israel or any other country to displace the Palestinian population. It is a good situation by Jordan and Egypt. They have the same stance towards any attempts for displacement.
Mm-hmm. And these suggestions, do you think that they will have any sort of bearing on the Gaza ceasefire currently in place?
Of course, so far everything now is going very naturally. Some obstacles placed by Netanyahu with the excuse to release a Israeli hostage called Erbil Yahud. She was released yesterday with Egyptian and US efforts, and now there is an operation room working to stop any hindrances or obstacles that might affect the current ceasefire. So far everything is going very naturally and good, and there's a lot of demining of the obstacles placed by Netanyahu to hinder this deal of the hostage exchange. It went the same way due to the Egyptian, Qatari and US efforts to stop any attempts to mess with the current ceasefire agreement. The next Thursday and Saturday, 2 batches of Israeli hostages will be exchanged for a large number of Palestinian prisoners, which is very important and will support the ceasefire agreement. All the concerns now are that Netanyahu backs up on this deal, and this will be the problem, not continuing with phase 2 and phase 3. Here comes the US role to pressure Israel into continuing phase 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm. From Cairo, that was Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor, Mr. Ashraf Al-Ashri. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Hela, back to you.
Thank you very much, Hani. And moving on, Palestinian resistance factions have hailed the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Wadi Gaza as a triumph over Israel's failed displacement plans. They highlighted the powerful symbolism of people returning to their destroyed homes, demonstrating resilience despite immense suffering. They emphasized that this return is proof of Israel's inability to achieve its goals of uprooting Palestinians or breaking their steadfast resolve to remain on their land. Head of the Palestinian non-governmental organizations network, Amjad Al-Shawah, has reported that teams are actively supporting displaced families returning from southern to northern Gaza, despite major challenges like destroyed homes and infrastructure. He highlighted ongoing efforts to provide tents, food, shelter, and medical aid. Al-Shawah emphasized that 20% of Gaza's hospitals remain operational and called the return of displaced Palestinians a powerful testament to their resilience, determination, and commitment to remaining steadfast on their land. Deputy UN spokesperson Farhan Haq has confirmed that 8 trucks are still entering Gaza under the truce agreement, highlighting the importance of ensuring proper security measures for aid delivery. He praised UNRWA's critical role and stressed the need for continuous humanitarian assistance. Haq also noted that over 60% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed and requires reconstruction. He expressed hope for the ceasefire's continuation to facilitate further aid efforts and support Palestinian needs.
Representatives of the de facto authorities demanding the immediate and unconditional release of all UN prisoners.
An Al Qahira News correspondent in the Egyptian side of Rafah has reported that 14 fuel trucks entered Gaza from Egypt. He confirmed that these fuel trucks are within the 155 aid trucks with medical and food supplies that have entered Gaza through the Karam Abu Salim and Al-Auja, known as Nitzana border crossings, in preparation to enter the Gaza Strip. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait has reiterated that the Arab stance is non-negotiable when it comes to the displacement of Palestinians from their homeland, whether in Gaza or the West Bank. Abul Ghait said that the long-standing and recurring proposals to displace the rightful owners from their land are rejected, and there is no value in discussing them. He added that the Arab support for the Egyptian-Jordanian position in rejecting the proposals to displace Palestinians is clear and unequivocal. The Arab Parliament has strongly condemned any attempts to displace the Palestinians from Gaza, viewing them as efforts to undermine the Palestinian cause and violate international law. Arab Parliament head Mohammed Al-Yamahi emphasized that forced displacement is a war crime, urging the international community to reject such initiatives and support a just peace. The Arab Parliament reaffirmed its unwavering support for Palestinians' rights to return, self-determination, and the establishment of their independent state with Jerusalem as its capital. Egyptian Parliament Speaker Hanafi Al-Gibeli has affirmed unwavering support for Palestine, rejecting any plans to alter its geographic or political status. He called the Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange a preliminary step towards peace, condemned displacement proposals as a regional security threat, and emphasized Palestinians' historic rights. Al-Gibeli urged global responsibility, highlighting the two-state solution on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as Palestine's capital, and reaffirmed Egypt's steadfast commitment to defending Palestinian rights. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has affirmed Egypt's rejection of any attempts to displace Palestinians from their homeland, underscoring UNRWA's vital role. That came during his meeting with International Organization for Migration Director General Amy Pope in Geneva, where he emphasized Egypt's commitment to comprehensive migration management that addresses root causes beyond security concerns. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. Egypt firmly opposes the forced displacement of Palestinians, settlement expansion, and urges a two-state solution. Displaced Palestinians return to their homeland in the north of the Gaza Strip. And the Palestinian presidency rejects displacement proposals and urges global support. And this concludes our news bulletin for this hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.